Well, hello there.
Hi.
How are you? I like it. You know, you almost got this whole sexy radio voice thing going on, so it's
I do not have the deep enough voice to be like sexy radio voice.
sexy voice. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Settlers Path. Wow. Here we go again. So the Grievance's WildStar cast. We have 3 of us here today, and once again, we're going to be talking about adventures. It's what Carbine was talking about again, so it's what we talk about. But this time we have 2 new people with us. We have Mr. Dash. Hello, Dash.
Hello.
Actually, it's Dashivah or Dashivah.
Yeah, you can just call me Dash.
Dash is easier. And
Just
of
like
course,
Soul. We call him Soul.
yes, we have SoulGuardian with a goat.
Yes, it's just Soul. Remember that.
Just Soul.
It's just
Why don't you have like a little soul patch? That would be sweet, don't you think? Shave it all off, soul patch.
I've done it before. Not a great fan of it. You know, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work with the bowling ball. You know, the bowling ball with the landing patch doesn't work.
Oh God! All right, so here we go again. This week, they opened up what adventures are about. So they went into details. There are a bunch of. They did a dev speak. They did a Reddit interview where people got to post questions to them that they answered, and then MMORPG. They did a nice little article on it as well, which is pretty cool. They actually had people go into a level 25 adventure and try it out, and they said they died a lot. They died a lot. So
they chose wrong.
Oops. So first, why don't we have Dash start out with our little dev speak here? It's 3 minutes, 45 seconds. So Dash, would you mind throwing that up?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Welcome to WildStar. This is DevSpeak. Oh, hey, look, a disclaimer. So today we're going to talk about a feature we've been very tight-lipped on up until now. It's an exciting one for us because it lets us do things with gameplay that we can't really do in standard leveling or Elder game content. We simply call it adventures. Adventures are 5-person simulations that take place in alternate versions of zones you've already played. Think of it as a choose-your-own-adventure dungeon, only in an open world where anything can happen. Each adventure has both a leveling and Elder game veteran mode. And because it's a simulation, we're able to create gameplay modes and mechanics that may not exist anywhere else in the game. And adventures are crazy repeatable. You're making all kinds of tough calls and tactical decisions, and they kind of matter. Like, determine the whole rest of the adventure kind of matter. Of course, enemy AI and random variation mix it up even more. Take the High Crest Insurrection adventure. Once you and your buddies airdrop in, you'll need to decide what tactic to use against the Dominion. Maybe you take the sneaky approach, creeping around to sabotage and assassinate. Maybe you rescue the oppressed farmers. Or just maybe, you turn them into an army to rise up against their oppressors. Freedom! Different tactics and choices have different risks and rewards. The adventure Malgrave Trail is the ultimate example. It's kind of like old school Oregon Trail, with no dysentery. While you escort your caravan, you'll need to pick from roughly a gajillion different routes. Gather resources, rest, defend against enemies and the elements, and deal with some unexpected gameplay encounters like tiptoeing the caravan through a vermin-infested minefield, or building tower defenses to fight off an ambush. Some routes are more explorer-friendly, some are more settler-friendly. Your choices make all the difference, and no 2 runs are the same. How about a gangster murder mystery, where you choose who to align with and who to oppose? Boom. Crime Lord's a wipeout. Or a massive strategic tower defense where you build up and defend your forts. Check it. The Siege of Tempest Refuge. Or a MOBA-style battle where you fight a randomly selected group of enemy champions. War of the Wilds. Now, this may be a simulation, but all that XP, it's all yours. And based on your performance, you can get medals, loot, achievements, titles, and more. So, you might want to give a crap. And just like a dungeon, when played during Elder Game, in Veteran mode, you can earn the sweetest of loot. Elder Game content with unique gameplay mechanics, branching stories, and content that plays out differently each and every time you run it? Daddy likey. Well, that's all I can show for Adventures right now. In the meantime, feel free to send us a message here. And here, and here. All three. At the same time. The devs are listening.
Well, that was cool.
I have to admit, I like Frost doing that stuff.
Yeah.
He's great at that.
So
So we,
great videos.
yeah, they do, and I'm glad they put them out. It gives us something to talk about. And every time I see somebody, you know, I like watching the YouTube. They're watching on YouTube, and everybody puts their posts up about it, and they're always, for the most part, they're always, you know, complimentary, which is really nice to see from the people out there. I don't see a lot of trolls going through the forums like that. Thank God. So, Adventures, there they are. Streak.
Streak.
What do you
It's not
think?
even Streak and Creed to get us
I
confused.
know.
It's like...
Oh, it's one of those nights, isn't it?
It is one of those nights. There's too much going on in my head. Ooh, a blue car.
Exactly.
SoulGuardian. Let's try it that way. What are your thoughts on this game, sir? Of this adventure?
Oh, the Adventures, man. Such mixed feelings. I think my original thought was that they were saying they were so excited to release this. It was their big secret, and they really wanted to like show the world all the stuff they've worked on. And in the back of my head, all I kept thinking was, if you guys delayed the game 6 months to work on these, then I'm going to be very upset. I like the idea kind of behind them, especially as an Elder Game content, you know, especially when you get max level, you have something a little different, something a little more open-ended, you know, instead of just running dungeons. But I don't like the idea of what they're doing, especially in the early levels. I just find that, come on, we're MMO players. It's not story-driven, you know? It's loot-driven. It's I mean, I know people are going to follow these things for the loot, but I just think there's just too much going on. With the storylines, people trying to follow it, or people voting and trying to, you know, what path they're going to go on. And I think it's going to be confusing. I think people are going to run around with their heads cut off. And it's just going to feel like you're forced into a 5-man party to just go level up somewhere, you know, like in the real world. And it just felt like they had all this extra storyline that they were just like, we can't seem to fit this in any, you know, genre or any, you know, not in any kind of race storyline or something. So let's just make it so everyone can access it, and it's like this extra thing that I'm not a huge fan of. I just think that it's just too much. And you know, I understand they're trying to be innovative for MMOs because, you know, they're so stagnant. People want something new and fresh. And I just think that on the early level stuff, I think it's gonna be a waste, and it's too much, especially before launch. You know, if launch came out, say like this month, 2 months, 3 months later, this was released as an Elder Game content, I would love it. Because by then, you've run everything, you've gone through it, and you'd be like, oh, sweet, I'll even go a lower level just to try it out, you know? Or it's just all level 50 stuff and people that are level 50. I would like it that way, you know, to really kind of refresh kind of the dungeon stuff after launch. But to spend so much time on this stuff before launch, I think too many people are going to blow through it and try to get to level 50 before they even try it out.
Yeah, I could see that happening. Yeah, and one thing you pointed out was just you know, you're throwing 5 people in there, and it's like you're just throwing 5 people in. I guess the way you put it. No.
Wait.
Well, I think it's cool.
When? No concerted. You know, they're all kind of going that way. You know, and
right.
Everybody goes this way and like that. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, but what if you were playing with, say, if you're able to, because we're almost imagining this like playing with pugs, right? Like, what if you're in there with 5 people you know?
Now
and
that
you all
is
want to experience a story, and you're all going to take the time. This might not be necessarily to level or to power level or whatever, but you sincerely want to just go have fun with 4 other friends, right? To go in there and have some cool kind of story, like a mobster hit or something like that. Like, to me, that seems cool.
Though. I mean, that's the thing. I think it's going to be broken down. Like, you give you all these options, and I think it's going to be broken down to something very simple. You know, it's not going to be choose your own story. It's going to be choose the same story that gives you the best loot. And so then when you bring people in there, even your friends, they're going to be like, we need to follow the storyline to level you up or to get you this gear.
Yeah.
And it's going to be so simplified, and only few people are going to be like, oh, I want the achievement to do every story arc or just go through all, experience them all. Because it's going to be so hard to organize that, where it's like, okay, tonight we're going to do this one, or, then we're going to run this one. No, people are going to be like, oh, we got to run this one again. We got to get this, the same thing, or I like this one the best.
But is it going to be chosen like that? Like there's one path that's the ultimate loot?
Well, they're saying like,
go ahead.
Oh, I think from what I was reading, they were saying like there were each. God, now I can't think exactly how they worded it, but I think there was certain paths. The loot was going to be standardized on it, so you knew if you follow this path, you were going to get this item. So I think at some point people are going to figure it out. Be like, okay, if you're a medic, you're going to have to do this, or a warrior, or whatnot.
Yeah, the medic's going to take this path, or this person's going to have to take this path. Okay.
Right. So it's like tonight we're going to run the medic's path, so we can get everyone that's a medic this level gear for before we go into a dungeon or something. And I think that's just how how MMO players are all about like damage per second. They're all about numbers and how to get through things.
Yeah.
And they're going to have this thing cracked, and they're just going to like yes, ideally I think maybe 10% of people out there are going to like, oh, let's take it slow and let's figure out the story and let's just really kind of dive into this. And that would be great. But I think the majority of MMO players aren't like that, and they're going to just fly through it and not even understand what's going on at the time they're doing it. Which is sad, I know, but I just think that's I just feel like a lot of effort's going into this, and I don't think people are going to appreciate it as they should.
So maybe a better idea for them to do would be have a rotating loot table throughout the entire instance, no matter what path you took. That just to stop people from taking the one path.
The set path, yeah.
Yeah,
because
that wouldn't be a bad idea.
Because when you watch the devs speak, like it seems like a cool idea, like how instead of just running into a dungeon or something, like one was air dropping in or whatever, or you walk up and there's this murder that happens, and so you have to figure it out, and so it showed the huge map and you have to figure out where you're gonna go. Oh, almost spilled my coffee.
Don't do that.
Oh no. But
go ahead.
And so if the path didn't matter and you would get good loot no matter what or where you went, as long as you finish the story, like to me that seems like a better option, right? Like so you can choose what you want to do rather than you're going to go in here and not know what to do, but eventually there's going to be a set path by the time this game launches that you're going to know that you need to do this for this item. I'd rather not.
I hope they don't do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. That would make me sad if that did. Game launches and this is what you do. That would make me cry.
Yeah, because it seems like a lot of work to have all these different paths to be forced to go down one for the best item, because then all that work they did for the 5 or 6 different paths that you could have went down is for nothing for all these different adventures. And so they're probably thinking the same thing. They don't want all their hard work to go for nothing, so maybe they'll change their minds on set paths or a set outcome for certain parts of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could
go ahead.
I mean, I'm just saying is like that's why I understand like the Elder game stuff. It'd be kind of fun to go through there and not really care about the loot. Even if you could get good loot, it'd be kind of fun to just experience a different story and just to have an outside kind of dungeon feel. But just the early level stuff is what kind of gets me.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, and I almost like to really kind of have fun with this. Instead of actually having a choose your own adventure, it should just have as you join in, there's a wheel spins. And it chooses it for you. So every time you go in there, it might be something different.
Okay.
Exactly. And that way, too, they could have, an algorithm that kind of calculates, okay, this percentage of people have done this and this, so we'll choose this because the least amount of people have done this path. And so you can go in there kind of just expecting the unexpected.
Yeah.
I think that would be more fun because then you're not planning ahead. You're doing it for the sake of doing it and for the fun of the group.
It's still the same items and everything, but you go in and you're like, okay, what are we going to get this? It's almost like in in World of Warcraft, what was that?
What?
Yeah, I know. Maybe someone else in chat can help me, but the was it Opera or whatever? The did either of you?
From
I never played, so.
Okay.
Start with K. What the heck was that?
From I can't.
You had to ask the one person that has never played.
I can't. But anyways, you walked in, and I mean most of the boss all the bosses were the same in this whole dungeon, except for this one. You walked into a theater, and when you got to the stage where the boss fight was, it was random. Whether you got Red Riding Hood or whether you got what were some other ones, like the Wizard of Oz or something, or
Yeah, they had Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet, like different fights with different mechanics, and you had to know all of them because you had to be prepared to what to fight next. And so to me, that seems like this idea is that, but expanded, right? And so it wasn't necessarily whether or not you get a certain amount of loot, but it's just fun to experience something different every time you go in. And I thought that's what made that fun. Like, okay, what are we gonna get this time? Okay, we have to do this. Like, and so if they can expand that dungeon wide over several different kinds of dungeons and adventures, then this mechanic would seem pretty valid for me to play WildStar if it was that way.
And especially, I mean, that's how they're doing their dungeons. They don't want their dungeons to be so predictable that people could just look it up online and be like, okay, this is what we're going to hit, this is what we're going to hit, this is how you do it. And everything is so standard. No, it's going to have, like, every week it's going to be a slight variation, so it keeps you on your toes and you have to adjust with the game. So I can, you know, so if they want that in their dungeons, why can't, instead of picking your own adventure, just have it just a random adventure? So every time you go in there, you just, you know, and how cool would it be too? Say you've run it a few times, and someone else is like, "Oh, but have you gotten this storyline?" And be like, "No, I haven't tried that one." So then you want to try it because just, you know, it's something different and it's a whole different adventure, so to speak.
Yeah. Or like you were saying with the like every time you go in, it's like a spinning wheel, and you're like, you get this one, like, oh, I haven't experienced this, like, how cool. Okay, how do we do this? Does someone in here know how to do this one? Or and so it's just like same dungeon, new experience, but same loot. And so you go through it just to have a different experience every time, rather than the same old dungeon run. Like, okay, here we go. Right,
because you could, especially if you're in a pug group, you know, and they say you can vote for whatever path you want to go on, you know, what storyline you want to follow. And I can just imagine the same people that want to go a certain, you know, you're like, oh, I want to try something new, and they're like, no, we're doing this one because it has max amount of XP or this or that or whatever.
It almost sounds like SWTOR all over again, where you have to do one with the evil side or the good way, or but it really didn't make too much of a difference.
One thing I'm worried about that is you mentioned pug groups, is if they don't get the path that they want to do, then they drop.
And how pissed will they be, right?
Oh,
and you need five people. It's not, you know, you need the 5 people in there to actually finish it. And even though they get a penalty, we all know people will take a penalty just to get out of a group they're not happy with, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, and even the same way though, even if you're with guildies and you're with 5 people, you have to be with 5 people. Not every time you can make everyone happy, and so some person might get screwed over a few times and just not want to do them again. You know, I mean, it could be that simple. Hopefully not, but that possibility is out there. So if it's just put up to random, no one can complain about it. You know, because they'll keep trying to get in there to get what they want, I think.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Don't mean to beat a dead horse here.
Okay, but here's one thing I was thinking about though. What if it was, instead of choose your own adventure, later on they use this mechanic to make your own adventure?
That would be neat to see.
Like almost
in
like,
what way though?
No way.
No, what way do you mean?
Like player created adventures.
Like Neverwinter kind of stuff?
Yeah, kind of like that. Like where they give you 5 pieces per this whole level to put in, like almost like plugs, like with housing or whatever. You can plug in this part of this adventure and this part and this part, and you can make your own dungeon if you want to.
Huh, that'd be cool if they work towards that, actually.
Because like it seems like everything like that, right? They have this housing as plugs. They got the what's the war plots. They got the plugs or whatever. Like, how far down the road do they have to have a dungeon where you just have plugs in it?
I mean, it would actually be a really amazing idea. Even the war plots, you know, you can get raid bosses and put them in your war plot and have them attack, you know, the opposite team. So it'd be kind of neat though if you could have, after you beat like a certain section of dungeon, you get kind of like a copy of that, like as loot. And so on your actual land, you could have a dungeon that would have, like you said, like certain plugs, certain blocks of raid bosses or whatnot, certain content that you could chain together in a way that you can be like, hey, friends, come over to my plot and let's just go raid, you know?
Yeah.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have to agree with that one.
And it's not necessarily one of those like, oh, this is the best way to level or get the loot kind of thing, but just like a quality of life thing, like housing. Like, you don't need housing, but it's just a fun thing to have. And so to me, even though adventures right now won't, like you're saying, if it stays the way it is, might not be appreciated, like later on, it might be one of those quality of life things just to do with your friends or have fun if people really enjoy what they're doing. And if they turned it into something where you can have a player created content.
I like your
Yeah,
idea. That's a good one.
I mean, it seemed to kind of fit their idea too of, like you said, the plugs, and also like how the land plots and stuff. It seems like there's certain things on there they've talked about giving buffs and stuff and certain rewards.
Yeah.
So I mean, if they could make a dungeon that was kind of cool in a small version that was literally like, say, 20 minutes, you ran it, and you got some 24-hour buff or some kind of just, you know, crafting material that was rare, or, you know, something, some benefit. I think people would really like
because
it.
you can like EverQuest 2 had create your own dungeons, and it was basically like this small template of a room, you know, just curved a certain way or whatever. But you can place your mobs wherever you could. So like in your housing, you can place things wherever you want, and they use the housing stuff to put inside of this little template. It's almost like a giant house, but you design your own dungeon inside of it. And so even though it was almost the same plots that people use all the time, you go into everybody's different plot, and it looks completely different once they deck it out with housing and stuff. So you might have the same mobs here and there, but people can create their own looks for all these dungeons just using the same items and the same mechanics they use for housing, because EverQuest 2 did it. So I don't see why, with the system they have going in for their housing with WildStar, why they couldn't do it.
It's very true.
I mean, maybe a year from now or something, like to get it all coded and everything, but I mean, I could see something like that happening, like them being creative like that with this stuff.
You've written their next expansion, sir. Congratulations. Give this man some money.
But that's the other thing, though. Is, I mean, I do feel like this is just a perfect addition to the game. It's an expansion to the game. It's to get it all during release. I think, you know, that's going to be driving this game, and won't see release until like July now. I just feel like maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe it has nothing to do with it. You know, the delays they've had. But I just feel like they put a lot of effort into this, and I just don't. I just would have liked to see it come a few months after release, once they really fine-tuned it and really had it for the Elder game stuff and really kind of focused it there. But that's just me, though.
Yeah. And then we won't be able to tell, obviously, until we actually all get. We won't see how well this works until everyone's in there, right? And everyone's rushing to the end. And what has more meaning? Do dungeons have more meaning? Adventures have more meaning? Like, do we have kind of a clear picture on how that's all gonna meld together?
I almost get this feeling that dungeons are the more important thing, and adventures are the time off thing. Which, when you're leveling, when do you have time off type thing?
But at the same time, it seems like there's so much to do already. Like, right, when you watching the streams, or like how many dev speaks do we have now? We have crafting, we have adventures, we have what are the short little dungeons called?
Ship hands.
Yeah.
There's the questing, there's the dungeons, there's the PvP. It's like so much stuff to do. It's like we have a lot of stuff to do. And even at lower levels, right? All the stuff going forward. We're not even talking about Elder game yet.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. They're packing a punch.
Yeah.
You know, they're definitely trying to cram a lot into this game. You know, and especially with all the challenges and stuff like that you can just randomly access when you're running around leveling, and even the crafting nodes that can jump up and become monsters and attack you. I mean, they really, I love the kind of energy they're putting into it. It's just, where do you draw the line? Like, I would love to see their drawing board. We're like, okay, no, we'll hold off on that for, you know, a year. Like, I would love to see like what kind of ideas they've come up with, because it just seems like there is so much going to happen. I just wonder, you know, like. Well,
it seems like they have a good thing go like with pack. Like right now, it seems like a lot, right? Packing all this into leveling, but because there's all this stuff, when I want to level an alt, it's gonna be I can. I mean, because we have 2 different starting areas after the main ship or whatever, right? That you can go down, and you can choose whether you're questing or doing ship hands or doing this path or that path, or dungeons, and it just seems like they have it set up in a way where won't see the same thing every single time you level up. I mean, eventually you will, but at least it's not the same one single questing path and one dungeon at level 10 and then 10 levels later another dungeon. Like, you have a lot of things to choose from. So they got that set up, and so we're going to have a lot of stuff to keep us busy for the next couple months rather than most MMOs that launch.
Yeah.
Don't have anything besides one raid zone or one dungeon or one questing path, and that's it. So
2 weeks into the game, you're max level. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, it seems like there's tons of stuff for us to do, and so while we're busy for 2 or 3 months, then they're going to be working on their other cool ideas for us at the Elder game.
And it did sound like, though, when they talked about ventures, and apparently 6 are going to be at launch, and 4 of those are going to have Elder content stuff. But they did sound like they were trying to say that dungeons and adventurers are almost on the same level, you know, for gear-wise.
Yeah.
It just felt like, you know, so they really wanted to make sure, like, the achievements, the loot, the housing stuff you can get, whatever, you know, so they did try to make adventures or almost like the outside dungeon. You know what I mean? Like an open world dungeon or something.
Dungeon, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they kind of make them feel. So I don't think we'll ever run into the problem like, okay, let's only run dungeons now because adventures aren't worth it. Which is smart, because otherwise, you know, we'd never. Once you hit level 50, you would never
touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would just be pointless. So I think they're smart about that. But it's so funny because I'm such a dungeon kind of guy. I just wish they would cut the adventures in half and give me 3 more dungeons.
3 more dungeons, yeah.
Yeah, that's just me though. You know, like I like that. You know, even though and plus they've shown their dungeons are not easy. You know, people are dying left and right. You know, that everything that they've shown so far is pretty complicated. Even though you think their combat system, you know, all the tells look pretty basic. And then you go and see these people play, and some of them are like, whoa, that's a lot more intense than you ever imagined. So I think that, you know, a straightforward dungeon can still be really fun, especially in how these guys do it.
One thing to point out before we start to run away, because we do have another cast coming up, is I want to point out that, you know, with these adventures, one big thing is with the group, it also depends on how well your performance is. That's going to affect your loot, it says. So, you know, we're talking about...
How do they gauge that?
Well, exactly. Right. Obviously, it must be, you know, how many times do you die? Because from what they said, they died a lot. Probably how quickly you can get through it to a point.
Right. I was going to say, like, uh-oh.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you have it so everybody's just burning their way through it, then I think you're kind of defeating the point itself, too. They didn't go into detail saying how the caretaker, who's supposed to be testing you out here for your simulation, is going to be grading you, but he says he's going to watch it. So I think there's going to be a lot of points here that are going to matter in what rewards you get. So what I have a question is, and I haven't seen it in anything I've read, is what if the path you take doesn't matter, but how well you do it is what matters. Maybe that's what it is. I'm not really sure, to be honest. They didn't really go into anything clear saying that this is the way it is that I've seen. I could have glanced right over it, to be honest.
It is a skill-based game, so it makes sense that, you know, if you took X amount of damage, or, you know, even when you're supposed to be a stealth through the town or something and you're caught, or a guy dies or whatnot, or he just doesn't, or it takes you 2 hours when it should only take you 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, it might be some kind of penalty there. You know, who knows? But it is a skill-based game, so they want to reward people with the highest level of skill.
Yep. And then there was one other thing, if I can remember it. Oh, I wanted to ask. I'll tell you what my favorite idea here is. I'm curious to see what the adventure, the Clue style one, figure out who the murderer is. I want to see how that works, because I like that murder mystery dinner thing too, and this is kind of like up my alley. I want to see what the heck this is about. So, if anybody ever wants to take me to dinner, you can take me to one of those. They're a lot of fun. Hint, hint.
Well, what if it was like Clue and then it was different every time? The killer was different.
I think it might be, actually. You know.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what they're heading for.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
It'd be kind of neat if it was one of your team members.
Yeah, what if it was one of the team members?
4 against 1. You have to kill him.
It turns into a PvP match.
Yeah.
Right. Oh. Put him in jail. You have to capture him.
I think it's him. And what weapon did he use?
Yeah.
What weapon did he use? This one.
The great
That
sword.
would be kind of funny
Yeah.
though if you're playing the game and all of a sudden all it flashes in front of your screen. You are the murderer or something like that. Like
Yeah.
now you have to run and hide.
Oh god. So I don't know how close you guys looked. Dash, what do you think your favorite one is going to be out of these?
Oh,
I don't know if you've taken. Yeah.
I don't know. I just like the DevSpeak video when they're jumping in, they're airdropping in, and they have the
Yeah.
rocket packs on. I was like, oh, I want to do that. Like, how cool was that? Of a way to start a dungeon is that?
So, have you picked anything out? I know from what you said, but you have any idea?
I don't. It's all about how it's going to be done. I have to get my hands on it. I mean, I did think it was interesting when they showed the guy on the ledges and overlooking all the people, and he had just freedom to kind of to rise up and defend themselves and free themselves from people. I kind of like that, like how it just looked. But I don't know, like the one that I didn't like was the escorting mission. I was just like, oh, another one of these. Like,
Not
I
a
don't
fan
get,
of escorts.
I know, like I don't get. It could be I mean, I might end up loving it, but just the thought of doing that, I was just like, oh, I've done a million of these, like in other games. Like, no, please don't. But yeah, so I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
Excellent. Well, interesting to see what else they come out. I hope next week they have something a little bit different than Adventures, though. Adventures 2 weeks in a row. Give me something different, guys. Give me some more to talk about here.
They're pushing hard. You can tell
Yeah.
they really like them. So
Yeah, they are. So, Dash, what's coming up next? You have a cast coming up next,
EverQuest
right?
next. We're gonna be
EverQuest
talking
next.
about Landmark. We have an alpha key to give away, some grappling hooks. So tune in.
Tune in, watch a show, get your beta key, alpha key.
Come to
Alpha key. Isn't it?
Alpha key.
Alpha key.
The $100 pack.
Yes.
wow,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah, they're. What was it? How many keys did they give you last week? Do you remember?
I can tell you. Gosh.
Oh, you can't?
Last week
Not
we
allowed
gave
to?
away 2. We have 1 tonight to give away. So.
Yeah, but you also had somebody in channel that was giving away from.
Oh yeah. Omid was in there, but we're
So-
talking about Omid on the WildStar cast right now. He's
Really?
the EverQuest guy.
I shouldn't be doing that, should I?
Gosh.
Ah. All right, we'll call it now.
Okay.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for your views and everything, and Soul, definitely thank you for coming from a different point of view because it's always interesting to get the other side of it, So I appreciate that. So again,
You're welcome.
all right, this is Kannon saying good night, gentlemen.
Good night. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Later.
See you.